Hey guys, welcome again to another video. My name is Stéphane Gonville and I have a website called freedomacademyhq.com where I help people overcome their shyness and their social anxiety. So in today's video, I'd like to share with you 4 things that you can do to start reducing your social anxiety. So thing number 1 is to stop overthinking before you go into a social situation. So I'm not talking to just you guys here, I'm talking about myself because I lived through this. A couple of years ago I was housebound because my social anxiety was just way too bad. So I'm talking about experience here, and this is what I've learned. When I used to have a social gathering or something that I was going to, and I would just start freaking out and start thinking all the time about what could happen, what could go wrong, what would I say, what would people think about me. Even if the situation was in, like, let's say a month or 2 months, I would still, every day I'd be like, oh yeah, I have that thing in 2 months, damn. Then I'd just start ruminating and just start overthinking the whole damn thing, you know. It would put me in a bad mood. And what I found is that by doing this, when you actually get into the situation, your anxiety is much worse because you just spent the last month thinking about how this thing could go wrong. So what I've learned to do is to implement meditation techniques and mindfulness techniques that allow me to kind of shut my brain off of the overthinking. You know, it reduces it by a lot. And what I use is breathing techniques where I just concentrate on my breathing, and I have videos on my channel that teach you how to do exactly that. But basically I use the diaphragmatic breathing techniques to stop this from happening. And what I've learned is that when I let my thoughts come up, my normal thoughts that want to like start freaking out, and I start to concentrate on my breathing, so my thoughts kind of, they're not as scary and they're not as intense, so I'm able to just concentrate on whatever I'm doing and not let those thoughts take me over. When I get into that social situation, it's like 10 times better because I haven't panicked for the last, you know, couple of weeks before that situation, thinking about everything that could go wrong. So I'm in there and I'm much more relaxed. Thing number 2 is to stop overthinking after a social event. So, you know, this is related to the first thing, which is to stop overthinking before a social event. But if you actually can stop overthinking after a social event, it will make your overall social anxiety start to become really better. Because what happened is that this is especially good for social situations where something awkward happens or something that you beat yourself up normally for. You know, maybe you said you broke a glass or something and you got really awkward, and this is especially good for that because this is actually one of the main reasons why people have social anxiety, is because they ruminate on those specific events that happened for days, maybe even weeks after it happened, you know. And I'm sure that you guys have some situations that you can think about that happened like, I don't know, you know, years ago that you're still thinking sometimes, you know, before going into social situations. Maybe those situations, they come back up like, oh yeah, remember when that happened? One of the reasons why that happened is because once that bad event happened and you felt awkward, you prolonged that awkwardness for days and even weeks by constantly replaying that movie over and over in your mind. I suggest that you stop doing that, okay? Whenever you go into a situation and something awkward happens, one of the best ways to kind of like cut that awkwardness phase out of the picture is to actually do a type of mindfulness techniques. And I still recommend the diaphragmatic breathing technique, which is really simple. I have videos that teach it. And it's basically where you concentrate on your breath and you let your thoughts come up, but you don't let them attach to you. And doing this is really good because you're not letting yourself feel excessively bad about what just happened. And this is a key point, because one of the reasons why you get scared maybe next time around, or maybe because of that event, okay, usually when you go into a new social situation after that bad thing happened in that previous social situation, you're going to be much more wary to go in it if you're constantly thinking about what went wrong in the last one. You'll be thinking, wait, look at what happened in that last one and it made me feel bad for weeks, so why would I want to go into this situation? This is why this technique is really, really powerful. It's one of my top techniques in my program. And basically what you do is that whenever those thoughts come up about feeling bad about what just happened, you implement mindfulness techniques, and it cuts the bad feelings, the awkwardness, the anxiety from showing itself. And this is really good because then next time around when you're faced with another social situation, you don't have to go through all those mental movies that you've played over and over, because you've learned how to kind of be relaxed in those, when those thoughts come up. You can switch on the diaphragmatic breathing technique, and the thoughts and the emotions are just way, way, way less intense. So you're much more prone to feel comfortable in a new social situation. The third thing that I want to talk about is to try and stop thinking your way out of your social anxiety. So this is something that I see a lot of people doing, and I used to try and do this a lot, but what I found is that it doesn't work as well as it's shown to do. So you see this a lot in like cognitive behavioral therapy, where they say when you're in a social situation, all you have to do is you have to change your thoughts and implement more realistic thoughts to replace the bad ones, right? But what I found in my personal situation is that whenever I do that and I'm in a social situations, two things happen. First of all, the fact that I try to change my thoughts, I try to replace my thoughts with better ones. So an example of this would be like, maybe if I'm in a social situation, I'm thinking, oh, I think they think I'm weird or something. If I'm having that thought, then what I would try to outthink that, and I would be like, wait, okay, so I'm just gonna try and implement realistic thoughts here. So I'm not that weird, and you know, was plenty of social situations where I thought that and nothing happened, so this should be fine. So this sounds kind of good on the surface, right? But what happened to me basically is that whenever I would implement a thought like that, automatically another negative thought would come and pop up, boom. So I would have an endless amount of battling to do. So okay, I battled this thought, now he throws me another one. Now I battled that one, he throws me another one. So I'd be constantly in my mind trying to outwitty my social anxiety, which is really bad because it only made me feel even more anxious, because when I figured out that, hey, this technique was supposed to make me feel more comfortable, but actually it's making me more nervous, I started freaking out even more. So that's the first thing that happened. So the second thing that happened is that whenever you try to outwit your social anxiety with your thoughts, you're becoming even more nervous. And this happens because when you try to use thoughts to battle thoughts, you're not going about this the right way. This is what I found in my personal experience, because you're actually making your social anxiety worse because you're battling on the level of thought. But if you want to actually overcome your social anxiety and become free from it, you have to remove yourself from that battlefield. And what I mean is that you don't need to be in a social situation and always constantly try to battle and eradicate those negative thinking. And you know, doing that is just going to make you feel even more nervous. What I found that works even better is to leave the battlefield. And what I mean by that is that instead of seeing your thoughts as enemies, you just see them as thoughts, and you remove yourself, you kind of like back out of the situation, and when a thought comes up, instead of being like, oh yeah, okay, well, what about this? And you try to like eliminate it. Instead of doing that, when the thought comes, you kind of remove yourself and you say, oh, look at that, my brain's having the thought that maybe people think I'm weird. Huh, interesting. and you remove yourself from the battlefield. And by doing that, you're able to let your mind do its thing, and you feel much more comfortable by doing that because you're not constantly trying to change everything. You are able to be in a social situation and just look at what's happening in your mind, just look at its content without getting attached to it. You know, you do not have to entertain every single thought that come into your mind. You can just look at it and be like, okay, cool. And when you do that, when you learn to do that, because it's a skill, right? It's a mindfulness technique. When you learn to do that, your social situations are going to be like 10 times better. The fourth thing to stop doing if you want to reduce your social anxiety is to stop avoiding anything and everything that is social. So this obviously is a no-brainer, but I still see a lot of people, and this I'm talking to myself also, I used to do this all the time, where, okay, I'm in a situation, I'm here, okay, and I want to overcome my social anxiety, but then I am avoiding anything and everything that is social. So how do you want me to overcome my social anxiety and become comfortable in social situations around people and be able to talk with confidence if at every step of the way when a social situation comes up, I desperately try to avoid it, or I actually do avoid it? It's a, you know, they don't commingle. If you want to become more comfortable around people, you have to do one thing and one thing only, okay? And this thing is to be around people. I know it sounds really dumb on the surface, but I know that for me, in my past, I didn't see it that way. I just wanted to find a magic pill that would just make my social anxiety go away, and I could continue avoiding social situations at every step of the way. So, you know, and during that time, I used to think that I hated people because I was like, you know, I was trying to find excuses not to go socialize with people, but people are social beings. You're a social being. Chances are that you think you hate people because it's kind of like just a quick, witty mind trick that your mind does to you to try and make you avoid social situations. But I'm pretty sure that if you were able to be comfortable around other people, you'd start liking being around other people. So the best way to do that is to actually, you know, force yourself at first, because now it's kind of hard and you've had a track record of constantly avoiding social situation all the time. So what you want to do is you'll have to kind of force yourself to face some of those situations and to go into social situations more often than normally, because it's the only way that your social anxiety is going to reduce. So guys, I just wanted to share with you those 4 little things that you can stop doing to overcome your social anxiety. If you like this video, subscribe and leave me a like. And if you want to know the exact 2 things that I've done to overcome my social anxiety, you can click on the first link in the description box below and I'll send you a free training. So guys, thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.